representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn.
Welcome to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Erik Van Horn here with a not so new guest, Justin Donald, the lifestyle investor. He's got an amazing mastermind. He's a friend, and we were doing some really cool stuff a few weeks ago. We looked at each other and said, this should be a podcast. So here we are. Justin, welcome back.
Thanks, Erik. Great to be here. And obviously, I love you. I love your community. I love all that you've built. And there's just so much that we've been able to do together, so many synergies, so many investment deals that we've been able to partake in. And I love how, just each of our groups and communities has really supported the others. So, and I love that we got a chance to hang in Puerto Rico together and just kind of walking and hanging out. We're like, we should, do an episode on this. This is valuable content. So I'm excited for today.
Dude, it was. And there's people that were making mistakes there that are friends of ours, and they're rookie mistakes that you do when you're going to networking events, masterminds, like events, whatever it is. So I'm excited to get into that. But before we do that, you were on a previous episode talking about the Lifestyle Investor book, and that thing has just blown up, like literally has done some amazing things. Give the audience a quick update on what's happened since you launched the book.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I feel really blessed to have a product out there that has been able to impact people's lives for the better. And I had no idea what it was going to do, if it would even be relevant. To me, I felt like it was relevant, and I originally wrote it for my daughter. So at the end of the day, if no one else got value out of it, I felt really good that I, was kind of having a legacy piece for her, that if anything should happen to me, she's got some of my words of wisdom. And it really has just spawned into something else. I
humble brag. What's the humble brag on the book?
Well, so it ended up becoming a #1 bestseller for Wall Street Journal, for Amazon, and like 17 different categories. It was #1 of all nonfiction books the week that it came out, and was #8 out of all 50 million books that they have on their platform. So that was cool. USA Today bestseller. I thought we might sell like 10,000 books for the year, and we sold 10,000 in the first week. And then, it's just been selling like crazy since there. I think we're approaching like 30,000 books or something. And it's just been really cool to see. And the network effect has happened where it's, my network has kind of talked about it to their extended network. And so it's fun just seeing the impact that it has. I just feel very blessed and honored to be able to put something out there that that resonates with people, that can help them make positive changes in their life.
Well, that's a perfect segue into, like you said, the network effect. And that's what we are going to be talking about today. Is there's a right way and a wrong way to network. There's a way most people do it kind of by accident, and there's the intentional networking, and it's probably not what most people think. We're going to talk about how to make yourself valuable in different situations. And a lot of people have a hard time in seeing the value that they bring. And I know I did for the longest time, and how to position myself. And then, and so you can do this anywhere at any time, but not only that, how you can help position others and help. And you did that with me in particular at this last event. And so you and I think a lot alike. And so let's give some real nuggets, like what actually happened at this event, and then just why we think the way that we think. So let's just have some good conversation back and forth, but let's set the stage. There was even stuff that happened before the event. Like, so you and I were going to this event in Puerto Rico. We had the opportunity to be around about, how many other investors were there?
I think it was 13.
13.
Oh, I'm sorry. There were 13 in the group that met before the event began. There were 50 total at the event.
50 total investors. Ty Lopez and Alex Murr were the kind of the mastermind, the ringleaders of all this. all of us invested significant amounts of money into different brands like Pier 1, Dress Barn, Franklin Mint, Modell's, Radio Shack. Different people invested different amounts in different companies like that. And we were one of those 50, or well, each of us were one of those 50 that came together and really had this kind of mastermind without it being a mastermind at the St. Regis Resort in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So that's what the event was. But even before that, like, give us, like, what were you thinking about the event before we even got there? And then I want to talk about the random lunch meeting where we, that just turned out to be an amazing half a day with everybody. But like, give us like your mindset going into an event like that.
Sure. Well, I feel like the random stuff that happens, that's like the world I live in. I just love random stuff. And when I show up to an event, my goal is to be intentional. It's to connect with people that I think that, we'll have great conversations. And so I go knowing that I want to introduce myself and I want to, learn what they do. I want to be a great question asker and ask quality questions that are different and maybe more unique than some of the questions that they typically get. Or in most cases, most people don't get a whole lot of questions. So I just love to give people an opportunity to brag about themselves, learn more about what they do and what makes them and their business special, because everyone has that. And so, to me, like, just meeting people is one of the most fun things. And it's not tough. It's not tough. I literally just have a series of questions I love to ask people, and they change. And I mix it up just to keep it really kind of fun and fresh for myself.
And you never know who you're asking a question to. Like, the most normal guy at an event might be the most knowledgeable, the most interesting, the most wealthy, the most connected, the most that will help you in any way that they can. So, and we experienced that there. There is a guy that was very normal if you were to look at the crowd, but there was nothing that was normal about him. And that we will get into that. So all of this stuff is before. Like, I love what you said about being intentional before you go. Franchisees, before you go to convention, you need to be intentional on what you're doing. If you're going into a mastermind, virtual or in person, you need to be intentional. Even if you're on a Zoom meeting, anywhere, be looking at the faces. And that way, if they say something that's interesting, you can follow up with that one or two people. And that's how relationships are built. So we, you and I had planned to hang out there a lot. So we'd already planned that. And then, we kind of planned to meet up at a certain point when we were there. And we actually both ended up randomly flying in the same day, staying at the same hotel. You had a crazy adventure to get to the hotel late that night. We won't get into all of that, but the point of that is there's stuff that happens before these events, and you can be intentional or it can even be accidental, but magic happens when you are just in groups of people that are not necessarily organized. So here we were. One of my buddies, I posted on social media, I'm in Puerto Rico. He's like, "You're here already?" I'm like, "Darcy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here." He's like, "So am I." He's like, "Justin's flying in. Will's having, at Fongo de Chao, like a big, massive meal. You want to come?" And I said, "I'm in." And then you and I ended up meeting there with there's a group of 13 of us that just had a fantastic meal, but there was magic in that meeting. So that's setting the stage a little bit. Anything to add to that? And then let's talk about what happened that day.
Yeah, well, so another layer of it is we were staying at that point downtown San Juan in Condado, and we're probably, 30 minutes, 35 minutes from Bahia Beach, where the event was being held at St. Regis. And I wanted to get a little feel for what the downtown there was like. It was supposed to be really cool, South Beach-esque. And it really was just awesome. And so I wanted to get that flavor before we ended up moving out to the St. Regis. And it was cool in the gym. And so I like to prep ahead of time. And sometimes you never know who's there, what's going to happen. So I just randomly like to talk to people. And so I saw this guy in the gym and I was like, "Hey, what you doing here? And we just started talking, had this great conversation. Turns out he was there for the investor event, which is really funny. Again, what are the odds? We're so far away yet, at the same time, same place. And I introduced you. You weren't there yet. You were sitting out and you had a call, and I kind of introduced you without you being there. And then you guys connected, but he and I just had some great conversation. And I mean, he was one of my favorite guys that I met on the trip, and it was just totally random. And just because I decided to take a shot and say, hey, how you doing? What you here for? You enjoying the island so far? So it was pretty cool.
Just open up your mouth and just talking to people. So that was completely random. He was also the last guy that we saw on that trip. We got the most amazing business card that I've ever had, and it's still in my backpack today. So it's like, just nothing's random. Always be intentional.
Here's mine. It's right on my desk. I love it.
Will Knight just got a shout out on the Franchise Secrets podcast because, you guys met at the gym, and then I ended up meeting him later, and but he didn't come to that breakfast or that lunch with us. So we ended up at this lunch, and ended up with having 2 different tables. And so there's like 6 of us at each table, and most of us didn't know each other beforehand, but then you start to understand what's like different people's backgrounds. And I love it because everyone's wanting to listen. Nobody's just wanting to hog conversation, and people are just really listening to each other, and conversation was all over the place. But because of that meeting, you and I were CC'd on a text this week from a mutual friend that says, Erik and Justin, remember so-and-so who you met at that lunch? He's interested in 1, franchising, and 2, doing something that you have incredible expertise with. So we full circle back around, and there's, nothing happened there at that event, but now we're having conversations, whether it's a coaching client, possible, franchise partner, whatever it is. Like, this stuff happens. And this was all before the event even started. And that's where, my buddy, your buddy now knows that you're, an incredible coach and consultant, and everything that you do from the investor mastermind piece. And then me being the franchise expert, he just puts 2 and 2 together and makes introductions. And it's always good to be thinking about others. And one of the things that I think about making yourself valuable is not just what you know, it's who you know. And our buddy Darcy knew both of us, and he made that introduction.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think that when you can come from a place of true service and genuinely wanting to connect people, that a lot of magic happens, and it doesn't have to involve you. For years and years and years, I connected people, and there was nothing in it for me. I mean, if something happened, great. I wasn't expecting it. I never expect it. And it's funny, after, a compounding effect of doing that, people start to want to just include you in stuff. So I get included in a lot of deals now that are just purely because I connected 2 parties. And again, no one ever has to do that, but I think people genuinely want to say thank you, that this introduction was valuable to me, and how can I just, pay it forward. And I love that community. Again, people don't have to do it. No one should ever feel obligation if I ever connect them. But it's kind of fun when that happens, and it's fun when you make a match and they do some crazy things and some amazing things together. It's fun to be the bystander that is watching and experiencing it vicariously through them.
So when we dissect that event, we had that meal, and then we were standing outside of Fongo de Chao, and we like, what's happening next? And some people had vehicles. And so we said, let's go explore the island. And we ended up it was dark. By the time we got back, it was nighttime. And then and randomly, I just got into a vehicle with you guys at the very end, which led to an amazing dinner event. But there was so much conversation that happened as we were going around the island, and then just seeing opportunity, and then just being able to be with each other. So I got to understand the island in a way that I never would have before, and I built relationships that I would have never built before, doing like things like that, like doing fun things with people. So that's important too. Just experience life.
Totally. And all unplanned. Like you had no clue what that day was going to look like. I had an idea of some of the things that we were doing because I had, different groups that I was jumping in and doing things with. But it was really funny, kind of like combining a few different groups where there were definitely people that they'd never met ever before, never even heard of each other's names, to spending a whole day together, looking at real estate, looking at beach property to buy, going through kind of cool, jungly areas and just looking at the potential of what you could build. And it was just a blast. And the conversation that you get into around that, because of just being in a place of creating and creative energy, and what would it look like if we built a community here? What would it look like if this were a private beach? What would it look like to be in partnership with the people that we had just met? And it was really powerful.
That was awesome. So we ended up finishing the night at a dinner, and just a shout out to you. We were ended up going to this dinner place. We thought we're all going to be able to sit around a one big table with about 10 of us. That did not happen. I ended up at a table with Alex Murr, who's the founder of, a public company, and doing these things with Ty Lopez, just a brilliant, brilliant guy. And you're the one that helped. You were one of the people that were the mastermind behind that dinner. You ended up going to a different table, allowed me to be able to spend that, time with me, Alex, his wife, and two other people. And I saw how you were in that situation. And of course, everyone wanted to be around Alex and to learn from him and to get into his mind. But like, you let me have that opportunity and encouraged me to have it. And when you took a step back, even though you were the one that kind of put that dinner together, what's going through your mind at that point? Like, what's going through your mind?
Sure. Well, I mean, props to you. You came over and said, "Hey, I'll switch with you. I know you're supposed to be at that table," and I think that's cool that you offered that. I mean, that's, a true testament to your character. But I didn't want that. Like, life kind of plays out as it plays out, and I'll just ready to roll with the punches. And also, I saw an opportunity for you to get close to someone that you weren't yet close to. And I thought, what better way than to have, kind of a captive audience? You've got, basically 4 or 5 people around a table. What great opportunity to really connect. And it only takes one of those to establish a deep-seated, long-term, relationship. And so I just thought it was cool that you had that opportunity. And in my, the way that I look at life is, I'm not going to say, yeah, and this is in, I try to live this way in all things. I don't want to look at like, what did I not get? I want to look at it as like, what is the gift in the situation that presented itself? And for me, I got to meet some cool people that I didn't know very well. And it wasn't necessarily who I had envisioned connecting with, but I had a fantastic time and I had a blast. And I was able to pull in another friend at that table and introduce him to, a couple new people. So it was really fun on a couple of different fronts.
So I noticed something at the table that I was at, and I noticed it throughout the entire event. There's some people that are really good about talking about themselves. And there are other people that are really good at asking really good questions. And you made a comment earlier that you like to ask really good questions. What's the balance of letting people know a bit about you, so you're not just asking questions, and then being able to ask really good questions and to learn from people that are maybe further ahead than you are in different areas, or are a subject matter expert in areas where you are not a subject matter expert. So what's that balance between letting them know a bit about you without talking too much, and then asking really good questions?
Well, the thing is, the the topic that people want to talk about more than anything else is themselves. And I know this. So if I can help facilitate that, then number one, it makes me more likable. It makes the chemistry that much better and easier. People start to feel at ease and relax, and it facilitates a better quality conversation. And I find that if I ask enough questions, eventually someone is going to ask me questions, but they don't need to. I don't care. I don't need to be there to toot my own horn. I want to be there to learn and be a student and just kind of figure out what they know and what their life is like. And it helps me understand them better. And as they answer, I can mirror their answer. So they might say something and I can say, oh yeah, I've had experience with that as well. In fact, let me tell you about this one story or this one situation or this, one contact that I have. And another thing that I like to do is offer value. So let's say I'm asking questions and they say something and I see an immediate way I can offer value. I'll chime back and say, actually, I've got a great contact that I know that is really knowledgeable here. Would you like to let me give you a little buildup of them. Would you like to be introduced? So I found that when I help people talk about themselves, give them a chance to share what they know, what they're good at, and then offer them value, it creates a really good relationship right out of the gates. And it really sets up a future conversation because they want to talk to you again.
That is so good. And I think, like what you said about taking a step back and asking really good questions, continue to ask questions, and they're eventually going to ask you about you. And let's say they don't. If they don't, that's probably not a relationship that is worth really pursuing. So I'm the same way. I am very comfortable asking questions, asking lots of questions. And if they don't flip the script and start asking me questions, I don't care. I'm not hurt. I just think they're just not really that interested in anything but themselves. And that's probably not going to be a beneficial relationship. And there's some caveats to that, but that's probably not going to be a beneficial relationship. That's a long lasting one. And so that's kind of a litmus test that I use at times. If I'm at an event and I'm asking a lot of questions and nobody asks a question back, I just think, I'm probably not going to, spend a whole lot of time on that relationship anymore. Similar for you?
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to cut people as much slack as I can, and I want to show up with grace. So because someone doesn't recognize that they need to ask questions to get to know me, I don't want to hold that against them. Maybe they have a lot on their mind. Maybe they're uncomfortable. Maybe they're insecure. Maybe they are not a great question asker or don't have the soft skills or the people skills. So my goal is to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I'm okay if they don't ask me questions. I'll have a good conversation. I'll learn some stuff. It'll be fun. I like to consider myself a lifelong student. And so I'm just always learning, and I'll walk out of that relationship or that time and I'll say, wow, I learned some really cool stuff, some really valuable stuff. And it doesn't have to be me sharing with them what my unique gifts are, what my skills are. And maybe that comes down the road. Maybe it takes a whole conversation like that for someone to realize, oh, I want to get to know Erik better. I want to get to know Justin better. I realize I didn't ask any questions. I can't tell you how many times I've had people later after our first meeting come up and say, you know what? I realized I didn't ask you anything about you. And it just creates another conversation. But I don't hold it against them. If someone doesn't ask a lot of questions, to me, I just say, hey, maybe that's not something that they're comfortable with, or maybe they got other things going on in their world, and that's totally cool.
And those are the caveats that I was talking about, because there's always exceptions, right? And so, you just, in other words, always keep an open mind And if you're going into it just really trying to get to know somebody, your goal isn't to ask questions to get them to ask you questions. That's not the goal. So the goal is just to get to know people. I mean, that's at the end of the day what it is. So now
Motive
we are
matters. Motive
exactly,
matters. It's not like,
exactly.
what can I get? What, how can you serve me? What can I get out of you? The motive really does matter.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Anybody that has an opportunity to go to an event, a mastermind, a convention, you name it, a group where people are gathered together and they're like-minded people there. Doesn't matter if there's 10 or 1,000. There's opportunity there to get to know people, to stay on property or off property. And that really was a topic of conversation. So we were there with a lot of other multi-millionaires that had more millions than I have and you have. And some of them really had a hard time staying at the resort, and some of them didn't have a hard time staying at the resort because it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't crazy expensive either. So you look at that as why would you pay, let's just call it an extra $1,000 a night to be able to be at the center of the action versus an hour of travel time, both sides of the event. So like, any thoughts on that?
I've got a ton of thoughts on that, Eric, and a lot of them because we've talked about this in depth. But to me, there are a couple of things that help me make decisions. One of them is convenience. I like staying at the hotel that an event is at. It's convenient for me. I like being able to go back to my room if I need to. I like having my stuff that I don't have to bring it all, that I could go back to my room if I need to get something. I can change if I need to. I can, squeeze in a quick workout in the middle of the day during downtime. There's just a lot of convenience factors. But beyond the convenience, it is what, to me, the greatest value in most of the events I've done doesn't come from the actual speaking or messages. It comes from the side conversation that happens in passing, in between messages, at the bar before dinner, on the beach, during a workout in the morning, randomly running into someone as you're going through the lobby to the beach to, go walk or run on the beach, whatever that looks like. And then there's just, like, I feel like that's where the magic happens. And it only takes one conversation, one relationship, one thing to create enough value to compensate for the extra $1,000 or $2,000 a night fare that some of the nicer places like a St. Regis would have.
That's exactly it. And then there's the opportunity cost too, in terms of just the pain. Like, there were people that had to leave early because of a taxi or an Uber issues, or they needed to get to bed at it could be crazy because it was an hour away where they needed to go. And and then they didn't have any of those other relationships that happened outside of the normal meetings. So it was just an absolute no brainer. Now, we did think about it twice. I thought about, should I stay there or not? So it wasn't like, a no brainer, but knowing that we did stay there, it was intentional. And when we were there, it was like, you and I had multiple conversations. We're so glad we stayed. We were fresh. Like you said, gym conversations, dinner conversations, beach conversations, hot tub conversations. I mean, it was awesome. So if you can do just generic advice for anybody out there, when you do stay on property, especially if it's a really nice property, look how you can get an ROI on it, because you've invested the money. So try to get an ROI on it. And it just changes your mindset a little bit. Like, I am going to go over to this place. I'm going to go to the gym, because there's usually people in the gym in the mornings or in the evenings that are part of the events that are working out. And I found that to be a really good place to get to know some people too, because you're not in a cocktail party environment. You're in the gym and now you have something in common. But then there's also, morning breakfast conversations. We had some of those, and after event conversations. So there's so much value, but also be looking how to get value out of that and take advantage of that when you are on property. Anything else to add before we move on?
Yeah, you're not rushed. You have time. Time is on your side. I don't want to have to rush and spend the extra, 30 minutes driving and getting an Uber and, just there's so much inconvenience in it all. And then I also think that there's a point in time where being frugal, it can cost you, right? It leads to more of like a scarcity mindset. I can't spend a little bit more. I need to save this much, or this is outrageous for a hotel room, so I should go over here to a $200 or $300 or $400 a night room because I'll save $1,000 or $1,500 versus the abundance mindset of, hey, if I go and stay at one of these places, and as long as it's a financially responsible decision, like you're not spending your only and last dollars on this type of a place, but think about the types of people that stay at a resort like that. Those are people I probably want to meet and hang out with. And in fact, we did. In fact, one of my new mastermind members, or our new mastermind, you're part of my mastermind as well, is a guy that we met in a hot tub, hanging out. Just you and I were having a conversation. And then Mick joined in and he's like, hey, tell me, I have some questions for you about this, that, and the other thing. And then we just had this killer conversation. And it's just funny how full circle that kind of works out. And he was really intrigued by what we were doing and some of the things that we discussed and wanted to get inside of our community.
I love that. So, shifting gears again, we're walking on the beach, looking at beach property, understanding beach property. We weren't looking at buying beach property, but we were with a guide that knows the St. Regis and the real estate market in Puerto Rico, and in particular that property and development that is happening. So he turned to another guy on this beach and said, hey, you know a lot about luxury real estate. And I just remember that. He looked at him, pointed to him, yeah, you know a lot about luxury real estate. And I'm like, I didn't even notice that guy before. And now I was like, this guy knows a lot about luxury real estate. I don't know a lot of people that know a lot about luxury real estate around the world. He certainly knew somebody and pointed to this guy. And I remember looking at you or talking to you and said, Justin, do you know this guy? And you said, no, but I'm going to. And that's really where we're going with this conversation really sparked this podcast, because what kind of came out of that is why we need to get this information out to everybody. So remember that conversation that we had when Ty was pointing out that guy?
Yeah, well, I totally do. And to me, it goes back to that aspect of being intentional. I show up and I want to connect. And when I find people that play the game of life at a higher level, or the game of business at a higher level, or the same level, or, in an interesting way, I just want to learn their story and hear how they did it and what mistakes they made and what successes they've had and how they were able to, put all the pieces together. And so it's funny with that, individual, we've actually become really good friends. And he flew into Austin and we met up and I hung out. He's got a family office. I met his entire team and we're starting to do some investments together. And so I've got an investment right now that you're aware of with the e-commerce company. Tradeful is the name of the company. And I don't know that I'm at liberty to speak in, a whole lot of, in depth on it, but I'm really excited about this company and all that they're doing in the, e-commerce and fulfillment space, like specialized fulfillment and solution-based type of company. And so he is excited to invest in this company alongside me. We got into a bunch of deals that they're doing, some things that we can partner up on. And it was just really fun. And that all came from overhearing a conversation and then making a decision to connect. And I actually ended up changing my flight that day when I found out he was going to share some of his wisdom with the group, and I pushed it back. And I kind of debated if I wanted to do that because it was going to put me into Vegas.
Kind of debated. No, you were really debating it.
I was, because I don't like getting into places super late, and I was already on very little sleep. So basically I was going to be up for 23 and a half hours straight if I pushed my flight back, going into Vegas, a place where you typically don't sleep a lot. And so, and I already had not been sleeping great, prior to that. So, but I did, and I was glad, and it was meaningful to him that I was willing to do that.
So this guy that you're talking about sold a company for excess of $1 billion, has another company, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is in excess of $1 billion.
Yeah, on a revenue basis, doing over $1 billion, and well north on one of them.
Yeah,
and in a short period of time too,
Yeah.
just over a handful, like 5 years. It's
So
really
this gives,
impressive.
and he's playing at a completely different level. Like he is playing at a level that I don't know that anybody else, maybe one or two or three of them were playing at that meeting, but a completely different level. And yet you've become friends with him. And it all started on the beach because we were on that walk and because we were listening. And then because you were aware enough to like, I want to understand him. It wasn't like, I want to get to know him so I can get deal flow. I want to learn from him. And then how can I offer value to him? So this was on the walk up the beach. On the way back, we were walking on the street. And that's when you said we were walking, and then you introduced me to Ty Lopez on the way back. You said, "Hey, Ty, this is my buddy, Eric. Eric's a franchise guy." You said it much more eloquently and made me sound much smarter, but you did a very well thought out, short, probably not well thought out, just an intentional introduction in a short period of time between me and Ty. And then I remember that over the next, 10 minutes, I was walking. There was like 50 of us walking. I got split up with Ty. He stopped, waited for me to catch up to continue this conversation on franchising. And I've heard him talk about that conversation that I had with him multiple times since, in large groups and small groups. So it was obviously impactful, but here it is. So what was going through your head? Why did you want to introduce me like that to him?
Well, I think it's really important to, I want to connect everyone that I know that could offer value to someone else. And you had said that I had asked you if you had met him, or you had told me that you hadn't met him or something. And so when I heard that, I was like, well, shoot, I'm going to introduce you right now. Come on, follow me. Let's go meet, let's go meet him. And so, I wanted you to know him, especially as an investor, but someone that has massive value. And then my job is to elevate you. And I think that that's important of anyone that you're introducing, that you give them a great platform to stand on and you showcase their abilities. And that is how people become interested in how they might partner with them. So there's this philosophy that a lot of people have that is the wrong philosophy, which is, let me tear down everyone else so that I look bigger. My skyscraper is taller because I'm tearing everyone else's skyscraper down. Versus the way that you want to go into it is, hey, I've got a skyscraper, and mine's great, but let me actually build an even higher skyscraper for my friend, because he really is a genius in areas that he has expertise in. He's best in class, and you should know this. And I want you to look as great as you can because you deserve it. And there could be some cool business that ends up happening between you and Ty or whoever I would introduce you to. My goal is to always elevate my friends, but it's also to always try to create connections and help them find a way to do business, or help them find a way to bridge and form a long-lasting relationship.
If you are in meetings, masterminds, events where everyone is building their own skyscraper, talking about what they've done, I've done this, I've done that, and they're just bragging about themselves all the time, it may seem like that's what people want you to do. But I'm telling you, I've had conversations last week in Vegas at a mastermind, and people hate that. People love what you just said because, and they love to be around people like that, that aren't just talking about themselves and building their own skyscrapers or talking about what they've built, and they're actually interested in other people. And then, like, let's take that a step further, elevating other people. If you are the guy elevating somebody else, that gets noticed. And you do it just because you want to elevate somebody else, but that really does get noticed in the right environment. So I love that.
And to circle back, that'd be the perfect example. Like, I hope you guys pair up and do some stuff and do some great stuff. And I don't have to be part of it, but whenever you do something big, I can feel really proud that I helped, create that connection. And to me, there's a lot of satisfaction that I can take in that. I think that is super cool. And, to people that really have to resort to talking about themselves, I personally feel that when that's happening, that it's due to them feeling insecure. And so that's kind of my take on it. And to anyone that really elevates other people and is, they just show up in a very humble way about themselves and what they do, that person to me just has this, silent confidence that is attractive, and it's magnetic, and I want to be around it. And so I would like to emulate that thing that I see in other people that is so just wonderful and needed in this world.
So, deal flow. I know people that listened to your last episode with me when we were talking about your book, The Lifestyle Investor, and your mastermind. People have reached out to me. I just had somebody today reach out to me talking about that podcast. Deal flow. You've even hit on some new deal flow that you had because of that Puerto Rico event. So many people don't have deal flow. So I just want to finish this conversation and kind of wrap it up by talking about deal flow. It's not a part of anything that we've really talked about. Deal flow is a byproduct of just what you do, who you are. It's a byproduct for me. Like, I have more deal flow than I could have ever imagined. And now you and I both, with combined deal flow, I give you deal flow, you give me deal flow. And it's just like, there's endless amounts of deal flow, but most people don't have access to any deal flow. What advice would you give to somebody that wants deal flow and they don't have enough deal flow right now? And you might even want to explain what deal flow is too, for those that might have the wrong picture in their mind.
Yeah, deal flow is just the amount of deals or investments that come across your, desk, for lack of a better word. How many deals do you have? How many investment opportunities exist that are coming your way? And in many cases, like, how many of these are very unique and special and rare and exclusive? Because that's really what you want. You don't want the ones that a lot of people know about. You want the ones that people don't know about. And that's where you can really negotiate some cool terms and have first mover advantage. And there's just a lot of positives to that. But to me, having great deal flow is a byproduct of your network. And so doing things to nurture and cultivate a good, strong network, a good, strong peer group, being in groups, masterminds, think tanks, going to conferences, going to events, having mentors, having coaches that are doing the thing that you want to do or have access to the things that you want to have access to. That, to me, is the name of the game. So people ask me all the time, well, where's your deal flow coming from? And it's just a whole bunch of different people, because I built relationships over decades. And I never know what's going to turn up with what deal, but I get people that, come out of the woodwork that I haven't talked to in I don't know how long, but because I connected them to someone else, 15 years ago, they're like, I wanted to get you back. I want to give you first dibs on this investment opportunity. And if you or your group want to do it, you can be the first movers in. And so that happens to be just, it's kind of eerie how often it happens. And that's just a byproduct of developing good relationships, being intentional. One of the things that I take a lot of pride, or feel like I've done really well with over, a long stretch, over a decade, is I would find someone in my community, wherever I was living at that time, and I would take them to either lunch or coffee or dinner. For a while, once I got married, I stopped doing dinners, but when I was single or just dating, I did more dinners. But I would take someone out and I would ask questions and I get to know them, and I would see how I could offer them value. Like, what do you need? What are you looking for? How can I best serve you? That is a powerful thing, because if people open up and they tell you and you have resources, you become very valuable to them. And so I've made a career of being able to help solve people's problems, whether it be the knowledge that I have, or whether it just be the connections to people that have the knowledge.
Yeah, and both are very, very valuable. You have more deal flow than anybody I know. So, hey man, this has been fun. I know we have a hard stop. We're going to have to do a few more of these. We need to talk about just investments at some point. So that'll be another topic on how people get educated on all kinds of different investments. Real quick, how do people get into the Justin Donald world if they want to connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. So so you can check me out at justindonald.com. If you want to check out the Mastermind, go to justindonald.com/mastermind. If you want to do private coaching, you can go /private coaching. But that there is a wait list for the private coaching. At this point, I just kind of cap that number and don't ever exceed it. And it's just really right fit people. So the Mastermind, there's currently a wait list for the Mastermind. We've got some 20 odd applications in the system right now. But for the right fit, it's pretty killer, because the network of people and the deal flow and the legal and the advisors, the expertise that is kind of on the board, if you will, or on my board for my personal life, for my businesses, is available in that group. And so we've just had a lot of fun doing some things together, investing in some deals. I love to teach and to share the things that I do and the things that I've had success with. So yeah, if anyone's interested, you can certainly go to justindonald.com/mastermind and then read through it. And if it's a fit, apply. And for anyone that is a right fit, I will actually do a formal one-on-one interview with you, because it is important to me that I'm curating a very amazing group of individuals. And I'm very careful about who gets accepted into the group.
And it is an amazing group. I'm a member and I love it. And I've gotten to know more people from it. So, man, thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure. Can't wait for the next one. This is so fun, Eric. I mean, we have endless things that we can talk about. So round 3 will be happening soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.